Okay, welcome back to the shop, everyone. Welcome back to the two-stroke turbo channel. Should rename this channel the Renault Dauphine channel. These cars are kind of hard to find these days, especially in good shape. And this one, I've been trying my darndest to get fixed up. I've got something planned with a relative. I can't give away too much, but I test drove this car a while back and it blew my mind how terrible it handled. I think I figured it out. If I push down on this right rear corner here, let's see if I can show you this. I'm going to push down here. You see how that bounces? That shock is completely blown out. The rear end acts like a basketball, and every time you go over certain bumps, it just tracks right. Like the whole car kicks out. Because it bounces, I think the tires come off the ground, and it drives me crazy because it feels very unsafe. So, it's not often you can find Renault Dauphine shock absorbers. I know that's the problem. So I purchased these Monroe-matic gas shock absorbers, which I think are the right size. Pushing on these. They're made for a heavier car, which probably isn't the best thing. But I'm going to pull the shock out and see how it matches up to this. And see if we can avoid going to France to buy shock absorbers for my Dauphine. Don't know if that's possible. So we have our cordon bleu wheel off of our Dauphine. We got our axle limiting strap off, which has seen better days. It's probably made of asbestos. We have our spring out. We have our shock out, and if you look at the shock, no compression, no rebound, no nothing, as I suspected. And it is a thin little shock. Look at this guy. The one I wanted to use in there won't work. But I do have these used shocks, which are a little rusty. They actually still work. I think they're off of a Honda. I think they might work just fine. All right, you guys are watching me work on my 66 Renault Dauphine. What we've done here is we pulled out well, first we dropped the axle as low as we could. We undid the retaining axle strap. I like to clean things up, so I put the spring in the sandblaster, got it all painted, looks good. Took the shock out. As you can see, there's no resistance at all. Well, there's a little bit, I guess, but not enough. This car drove me crazy because I think I explained earlier, just driving over bumps, the asphalt expansion joints, the rear end would step out because there was just nothing there. So I went through my scrap pile and I found these shocks that are pretty close. They have really good compression. They're old. They've been sitting outside for a long time. About the right size. I've got to modify the pin by putting in a bushing in there and maybe just do a little modification of the bushing on the top. I think they're going to work fine. I can't seem to find Renault Dauphine shocks unless I go to France. So I'm going to put these in there. I'm going to make sure this will fit up in there. It will, with a little modification, I think. So we're going to try this. Stella is here helping me today. This is what she normally looks like when she doesn't know she's being filmed right now. Tries to get right in my lap, right in between my workspace. So this is kind of a job because you got to drop the axle. You got to get the brake shoes out. And get right in my face. Yeah. Get the caliper off, which is actually kind of hard because there's a bracket on the back that makes it difficult. And then clean everything up. I painted this kind of a burgundy. Should look pretty good. Should match the front. Are you going to kiss me? Okay. That's a good girl. So that's what we're doing. Gonna make this Dauphine very clean. Stella? Okay, so get a little closer in here. I'm going to turn the light on. Let's see what I'm doing. So this is our lower shock perch. This is our French bolt that has a slotted head. sure why it's got a flat part on it. So the bolt goes through like this, hold the lower part of the shock. You can space it with a washer. Throw some in there. Take our new Honda shock, and you got to trim just a little bit off the top there so the shock will clear. Shock then goes up in there, and this bolts here. But you can see there's a little bit of play. You take that up with the washers. I'm going to do that, then slip the spring over the top while the shock is out like this, and then you use your jack or some type of a way to push the axle back up, and then hopefully it'll all bolt up from the top. Shock is a shock is a shock. I don't think there's much dampening difference between those two. The blue ones that I ordered, the Monroe magnet, they were for a heavier car. And I was looking for a little bit more shock, but size matters, so I think it's going to work just fine. Okay, so we got this one all back together. Brake calipers are back together. The new shock is in there. It looks good. The spring is cleaned up. I even painted the shock housing. I did have to trim this little nubbin off right there to get the shock in there, but it seems like it's going to work. Everything's tight, and it expands and contracts. In other words, the shock works the same way. Now we're going to go over to this side, and I'll set up the camera and see if you guys want to follow along. This side hasn't been touched. I'm sure this shock is blown out too. And we're going to make it all better. So it's kind of a funny thing. I found this jack handle that goes with the Renault Dauphine. And if you look, it's got a kind of a cross peg through there, and it's a crank. Down the hole in the back of the valance here, it's an engine starter is what it is. There we go. Rotating engine. Just like that. Oh, of course I just chipped my paint doing that. But if I ever break down, I've got this. All right. So we got to pull the pins out first thing. Like this. These R clips come out. That loosens up the caliper, but there's a bracket in the back. Well, I'll show you how this works. You got to get the e-brake cable off. So you kind of pull on that, and then it goes up into the little trough like this, and this has got to pull back. They're not easy to work on. Being disc brakes, not easy at all. Come on. Can you use a screwdriver to get that out there? Oh, it's almost out. There we go. Got to get that off, and then there's another bracket back here. Same type of thing. Pull this back like that, and you get your cable to hang. Now there's a triangular bracket. You've got to loosen up this big nut on the back side. And you do not want to rotate your e-brake stanchion, because it will throw your adjustment off. That's got to come all the way out. Get off the rubber peg like that. Okay, so now you should be able to get the caliper. Oh, right, I need a screwdriver. You lift out one side like that. There's a little rubber guy, a little insulator in there. You need to save that. Same thing with this one. There goes your rubber insulator, just bounced across the floor. And now it should come out. You may have to give it a little help. So the brake pads are going to fall out like that. And you want to set them to the side. And you want to be careful with your caliper. I'm going to hang it somewhere. I need a bungee cord. Where's that bungee cord? There it is. These calipers are really expensive. It's like $400 a caliper. Okay, so I'm going to hang it to the muffler in the back here. Get it out of the way. Okay, so then once you got that out of the way, now you got to take off your limiting strap for the axle and loosen the shock from the top. And I'll show that in just a bit here. I'm going to show you a little trick here about getting these shocks out. So on the top of the shock, you've got the shaft, the threads, and then this little flat spot. Now, way up inside here, you can't even see it, there are two nuts that are double locked on top of the shock. So you've got to blindly get your pinchers, or I should say your vice grips, to hold that, and then a ratchet. This is what I'm doing up in there, and it takes a while, and that's why I'm not filming this. It's probably going to take me 20 minutes. I shot some lubrication up in there. It's totally blind. Can't see anything. Got to get your wrench just in the right... that's not the right spot. Stuck over here in a loosening position. Then you got to get your... on the flat of that thing. Hopefully you're going to bite, and it's just a pain. I don't know why they did this. Okay. Oh, I almost had it. So I've got to measure my tool, make sure I've got a good bite on it. Yeah, that should work. And then hopefully I can break it free. It's quite the struggle. You don't want to pinch your finger while you're doing it. You can't see anything. It's totally blind. Oh. All right. This is going to take a while. Can't even get it. All right. Well, I'm going to fight this off camera. Okay. I just thought of a way I could cheat this. So I'm not having any luck getting my tools up in there. But what I can do right now, the shock is compressed like this because of my limiting strap. If I take the limiting strap off, the axle will fall. It will extend the shock, and I can come in here. It's not the right thing to do, but I'm going to throw these shocks away. I can clamp onto the shaft, which will keep this from spinning, and then I can loosen the nuts on the top. So there's a little tip for you. If the shocks are bad, you can do that. You don't want to damage a good shock by tightening up on the chrome rod there. The seal will break and you'll need new shocks. It's no good. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I've got my limiting strap off. It's this little flappy guy right here. Now I'm going to lower the spring, which is not retained anymore. Hopefully it doesn't fly out of there. It shouldn't, because the shock is still attached to the top. Okay, that's as far as it'll go. And hopefully I will have, yeah, I can see the shock rod, so I can grab onto that with some vice grips, I think. Oh, that's such a bugger. It's hard to get in there. I don't know if it's do it. Maybe. So I'm grabbing the shock rod, which you do not want to do normally, as tight as you can get it. Thingy grown, okay. That didn't work. It's chrome and it's tapered, so I need something better. Don't think I can get it. Okay. Gonna pull off there. It's not gonna work. Need some different vice grips. Okay, so I got some bigger vice grips, small vice grips. Let's see if I can get in there. You go in there easy. Let's see if I can get a bite on it though. Get them tight. Nice tight. Okay, that's gonna work. Then you take some lubrication and you get up in there and you lubricate the top. You can't even see it. Okay. It's a 14 millimeter. Let's see if I can break this loose. Just the top nut. Again, it's double nutted. Something's turning. Is the whole thing turning? I can put my finger on top of the shock and see if I'm turning the shock rod. Ah, turning the shock rod. So this is not helping. This is a pain. Double nut, blind, rusted, French. This is where you start cussing. How am I going to get that? Okay, I got to think about this. Okay, so after struggling for a good 20 minutes, something broke free. I don't know how I got so lucky, but I got the nut loose. And now the nut is up against the top of the shock. In other words, I've got my vice grips on top here, and then I'm loosening up with a wrench here, and so I'm pushing up against my vice grips. So I've got to get it loose. I can't believe I got it. That's pretty amazing. That's totally up in there. It's about this high, and I've got to come in at it like this. Tell you what, you guys are getting a real treat here watching me struggle on this. Now I've got to undo my vice grips. Like that. So in other words, I use the vice grips that are not pointed. They have a stronger bite there, kind of like a claw of a bird or something. And maybe I can get these things. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Look at this. So the nuts are it's double nutted, top nut off, and let's see, may turn the whole shaft. Yeah, the shaft is turning. So the lower nut is yet to be loosened. So same thing again. I got to get my bird beak back in here. Blind again. I can't see it. It's way up on top. Oh, it doesn't seem to be rusted. I put penetrating oil in there, and that loosened it up. But this is chalked up to experience just by feel. I use my fingertips to feel it. And then get this bird beak on there nice and tight without pinching your fingers, because that would really, really hurt. Can't see what you're doing. I think I got it. Clamped, yep, clamped tight. I'll tighten it up a little bit more. Okay, that's tight. Now I'm going to push the vice grip up against the fender well, so that kind of holds the top of the shock. I'm using the open end of my wrench to get on that nut, and let's hope this loosens up. Oh, oh, oh! Thank you. Thank you. Oh, geez. This is the hardest part of the job. Fighting what you can't see. I got it. The whole thing's got to come shooting out of here now. So what I'm going to do now is I think I'm going to turn the camera off, lower this down, put the jack under to support the spring. Otherwise, the spring could potentially relax and come shooting out, hit me in the face, which you always got to take into consideration your safety. Okay, so if you notice, I've got my floor jack supporting my axle, which is in effect compressing my spring, and I should be able to reach up in here, and I can loosen my top shock nut. I don't think it's going to come shooting out of there, but you never know. So the shock nut is right there. Whew. I'm very happy about that. Now the shock should fall. No, I'm going to loosen up this. See what happens here. Spring may decide to come out of there. I don't know if it's tension-wise. Okay, it looks pretty good. Now, had I just taken that nut off, that spring could have come out. It's loose. Is get the shock to push down in there. Now I'm grabbing the shock rod. Yes, it's going down. This one feels better than the other side. Got more tension on it. Okay. Almost. Careful on your fingers. Fingers are your most important tool. Okay. There we go. We're almost down. Go. Okay. Oh. Here's our spring. Spring removed. Shock here. Oh, that's interesting. This shock is good. Shock is still working. The other side was completely blown out. I can barely move that one. This one, just terrible. This one, not so terrible, but it's going to get replaced nonetheless. It actually might be seized, or the new shocks that I'm putting in are not stiff. Okay, so I've got to take the bushing out of the bottom of the shock. Got to clean and paint this up. Oh, that was a lot of work. Got some work to do. I got to sandblast this spring, paint it. We are on our way, I'll tell you that. Okay, so we got our new used refurbished shock back into its position. We sandblasted our spring, painted that. I have the top of the shock all the way as far as it'll go. You can see it's not all the way up there. I have to take the jack and recompress the spring to get the nut on top, which is blind, way up in there, and see if I can hook this back up. Okay, so finally we got the nut to line up on the top. Turns out the bushing was crooked up there. It was a bushing like this. You can see that the inner part of the bushing was offset, and I couldn't get the stud through. It took me a couple tries, but we got it. Got a new bushing up in there. It's double nutted. Shock seems to be fitting fine. The retention strap or retaining strap is back on, and now we're going to let the jack down, and hopefully it doesn't all fall apart. Hey, look at that. It didn't. So set that off to the side and put our brakes back on, put our wheels on, and maybe we'll take it for a drive. We'll see what the weather looks like. Ooh, the weather looks good. Okay, so we're back. The shocks are in. The car is on the floor. Let's do a test, shall we? Pushed it. Pops right back up. Seems like it raised the back of the car up a little bit. Maybe those shocks have more juice to them. Stella is just lounging in the sun. Today is Sunday, by the way. Came in the shop just to work on my own personal cars on a Sunday. Nobody can bother me. Ooh, something good's out there, Stella. I can hear a bird chirping. But it's sunny and bright. Maybe we should take this thing for a drive. Why does it look so canted? Maybe the swing arms haven't released. Yeah, that's probably it. So once I roll it, it'll probably... Let's see if I can roll it backwards a little bit. See if the swing arms will go down. Yep. Oh. Yeah, that's what it was. The swing arms are kind of stuck up from being lifted. So now it's settled down. Probably went down an inch or two. I just want this thing to handle better. So I think we should take it for a drive. We're going to torque our lug nuts here, make sure our wheels don't fall off. Renaults only have 3. There we go. It's like 45 foot-pounds. That's max. They do not want to break one of these. And you only have 2. There we go. Come on, baby, don't break on me. Ah, good. Okay, so we're inside our newly painted dash, Renault Dauphine. You'll notice I still have paper on the window there. I pumped the gas a few times, and I'm going to turn the key. Let's see what happens here. It doesn't want to start. I may have flooded it. Pumping the gas a bunch. There we go. Reverse is down and back. E-brake is off. Let's see if we can get our dog to go for a ride. There she is up there. And before the rain hits, looks like it's going to rain any second. Brakes are good. That's nice. Idling fast. Come on. Let's go. Come here. Hop in the back seat. Good girl. You ready to go? So the weather, it's really going to dump here in a second. Got to get this thing warmed up. Go. I just wanted to say, of all the cars that I've driven in my life, I have never experienced such insecurity with a bad shock as this car. It only had one bad shock on the passenger side rear, but it would just make the whole car skate around. I've never experienced that before. I don't know if it's got an alignment issue or what, but we're gonna find out. It'll be a difference. I don't have working wipers, so it starts raining. We might have to cut it early. Stella is in the back seat. The car is warmed up. This car has gone through quite a transformation. Let's see if I can turn my light off. Good. Go for first gear. I got the gear shift working better. It's starting to rain already, I can tell. So far it feels great. Huh. Okay, there's a bit of groaning from the back. Oh, nice. Nice, nice, nice. You don't get the fair turn signals? Oh yeah, they're working. Oh, the road is blocked. Oh, the gas pedal is. I went from first to third there. There's second. Third gear. This is the part where the rear end comes. Oh, it's so much better. The shock is working. That used to be where the rear end would come around. Uh-oh, here's a guy. This kid on their power wheels. Wait for them. Turn in the park here. Oh yeah, that feels good. I think this thing's ready for a full-on registration, get insured, start driving it. It's starting to rain. Big time choke just kicked off. And we are zipping up to second gear, third gear. It's a little dirty, not bad. That's 45 miles an hour. Let's haul on the brakes. Works good. Yeah, not bad. It's a nippy little thing. Can't see much out of the windshield. Sorry about that. I'm glad I didn't go further for a test drive. Be able to see much. Okay, the brakes are good. Car is running good. E-brake is working. Nice. Woo, it's gonna pour. Skelly went out of there? Okay. Yeah, this thing's come a long ways. Oh my goodness. Runs so much better with that new shock. Just purrs like a kitten. Yeah. That's my baby. Wee wee. Goodness, is it pouring? You can hear the rain coming off the roof. This little car is gonna melt. Let's get it back in the shop. I need to get the wipers fixed. Reverse. What a neat little ride. Can't wait to drive this thing this summer. Yeah, there we go. See if those headlights work. Yep, they do.